Thanks a lot. Indeed, very interesting was to hear many interesting proposals and ideas, probably on my own behalf and from the business community, which I represent in the person of the American Commerce Chamber. All ideas related to it, not to give the legal fact to this document, item 16, which debates this. The idea is that the development of this document should not have the legal status, as contradicts Article 52 and something other. These all ideas, all this simply neutralize all intentions in about developing. I would like to recall just with what the development document has been linked. As present, the anti-monopoly law has not been developing. Why? Because the anti-monopoly committee has been all this a thing in itself. This is an authority that made decisions, revised itself, and with that, all the anti-monopoly practice was all. Let's be frank. If we want to change this situation, that we in any case should have a document which you might just have in your head when you plead to court. Well, but having this item 16 in the explanations, we won't go to court. But then the court says it will say that, sorry, it's not that document, I have Article 52. We confronted it many cases which are already in judicial practice. Therefore, I would like us to start from the basic theme and then to move further into the specificities. We're in favor of that, for the document to have some legal mandatory force. At which stage should it be in several months? I would like to point out that what you wouldn't give it a legal status now, I don't think that will save that decisions might be made as a bypass of this document. But if you pass this document as recommendations for yourself, you say that you will apply that but there are cases that you won't use these recommendations, that's already a doubt. Therefore, given a legal status to this document will make only a positive impact, irrespective that it is not a perfect one. Might be discussions on its character, and we make. But this document should be tested also through attracting independent judiciary bodies. On the whole, we are glad that on the whole this discussion is going on, because I would like to remind that for many years we even couldn't that we would like to devise such a methodology. The previous composition of the committee curtailed any discussions in this regard. The fact that the document is available of such a level with which we might organize discussions, but this level is rather high in its development. It's a positive thing. And a couple of words I would like to speak about the remarks that have been just made here. With respect, for example, the exclusive nature, the exclusive list of the secretaries, we would like to have this the precise list of exclusions. Mr. Silver corroborated that we supported in present Ukrainian law applying practice. Discretion which the anti-AMCU has at the moment should remain in some curtailed volume, just as it is the part of the anti-monopoly law as such. On the whole, that methodology which you see at the moment, at each stage of forming the fines, we provide for some level of discretion. We think it is sufficient to ensure the matching of the resolution to the circumstances of a case. And as for item 16, I want to be excluded from this wording, as it neutralizes all the idea of these recommendations. And as for the subjective side mentioned under item 6 of recommendation, I agree that probably it'll be premature mechanism. It indeed contradicts the nature of the legal responsibility for infringing the anti-monopoly law. Probably it's a theoretical question more in character, how to devise legislation as in the Anglo-Saxon system, but it's probably a pre-timely question. I would like also to speak in favor that the compliance program should be one of the mitigating circumstances, because I support the Igor's standpoint who presented at the roundabout. We put two jars of the weights. Positive effect of this provision if included into the recommendatory explanations, and a negative effect, as Alexander Leonidovich mentioned, and in some cases it may be an aggravating circumstance. A positive effect that this provision will appear is quite higher, in our opinion, than a negative effect. Why? Because if this provision will be included, it will be a powerful incentive for the business community to develop compliance programs in the field of compliance with their anti-monopoly laws. In our opinion, it's might be a very important accomplishment in this regulation. And in defense of the position mentioned with other lineage that with regards that principle should be detailed, it seems to us that any detailization, the deeper is better in the level of each legal document, is a positive thing for sure. In the absence of the proper practice in courts, it should be in place. Thank you. Thank you.
And short comment from me. Thank you for all the comments provided, and the red thread here. The best is the enemy of the good. And if we are talking that we would like to develop really ideal, perfect document that will be perfect operationally, so we are working 2 months. Not all of us, definitely, and to take responsibility and say that's the exhausting manager, all the exhausting list of all the circumstances that it's carved in stone, the mechanism, how to calculate the relevant market. And we have a lot of people here at this table, and everybody's having own opinion how to figure out and calculate this relevant market. And you're absolutely right and to the point when you say that anti-monopoly law as a practice was not developing because it was closed kind of legislation. And we need kind of cases to be developed, should be public, made public. And for sure, we are not afraid. We are not scared that any document that defines the methodology of sanctions, it can be mandatory, but then the issue arises when it can be done. And the quality level should be such a quality that it should be like carved in stone. And my personal feelings that May 19 next year, it will be 1 year since Parliament have appointed me. So at least 1 year of practical application have to be. We are reviewing the cases. For example, we have still cases as of in our department 2010, 2011, 30, 40 cases. And these cases are entirely different and in circumstances and importance and whatever. At the previous committee we were looking at concrete and specific case when there is misuse of monopoly status and 300,000 hryvnia were charged. But then the company is the monopoly and proceeds they have in billions, and to find the proper balance, really it's very important that this is 300,000, but it's kind of just systematic and whatever, how systematic it is. And when we apply sanction, it's not like 1,250,000 something, but it should be having an impact, that rehabilitation kind of, and definitely prohibitive impact as well, and deterring impact as well. We are in favor of transparency. We are not afraid of this. But the quality of the document, if we are taking the obligation that we are going to follow and work with this, we need some more time to practice it in real life. This does not mean that we are not willing that in 6 months and 1 year to have mandatory document. But all the time, in any situation, you can find and you can strike the proper balance. And the bottom line of item 16, it's more about the circumstances that it's hard even for us to imagine what can occur, what can happen to adequately apply sanctions in the concrete and specific situation. And basically, the more practical experience we have, the more detailed practice we'll have with respect to the document, will reduce our discretion. But the most important issue, and to me personally as well, as a person that I was not involved all the time in calculation of relevant markets. When we are talking about the basis and percentage from the basis points, and then the point is about how we figure out and calculate this relevant basis. There is a market infringement happened, and we discuss a lot, and we have discussed a lot about this, and yesterday and last week, and I think this is subject matter number one, and we'll try to make it more clear. And with respect to item 16, I just wanted to support this. This requires discussion. But with respect to legal status of the document, I just want to defend the line of Anti-Monopoly Committee. In this case, this will be hard to adopt it. And then Anti-Monopoly Committee, that they have some time limits, including to European partners, and it impacts the economic policy, and there are lots of questions to you, Lana, about compliance. Why you consider compliance? Actually, I heard about compliance programs as this is making it more serious non-compliance. When I am within compliance program and then direct participation in bidding, I should not communicate with my competitive bidder, and these are already violations and non-compliance, and I have signed that I'm not going to negotiate with competitive bidder, and that's my responsibility. And I was sober enough and rational enough, and I have infringed my own behavior, and compliance programs confirm this really, and that's why I think that's the factor that makes it worse, and the fact that this is mitigating factor, and that's from practice of other countries. When we are talking about anti-corruption legislation, there is close concept in UK Anti-Bribery Act, and it is specified because the liability is not a natural person but a legal entity, and the compliance program availability confirms that a legal entity tried to do its best to prevent non-compliance. In case non-compliance happened and occurred, it's due to non-compliance of some specific employee, sales manager, for example, or whatever. This should be mitigating factor. That's the logic behind it, as a mitigating factor, not a factor that makes it aggravating. And that's not an absolute, because in case investigation proves that despite all the compliance and blah 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 and all the preventive measures and legal entity all the way to decision maker, CEO, CFO, everybody confirmed that this non-compliance happened and the whole chain was aware, that's not any mitigating factor, it's an aggravating factor. That's the aggravating factor. But that's why in the respective countries they have the competition agency measure. In addition to the sanction, the company should make sure that compliance program within the company should be monitored and updated and whatever. But the fact that this norm is in the law, that's a positive for compliance culture. Because when we are talking in a straightforward way, that in most of the companies they have no clue what this competition law is about and anti-monopoly compliance, what it's all about. You want to say something? Yeah? Я скажу тільки одне слово.
Way, because it's very easy to print up a piece of paper and say, now we have a compliance program, but the very fact that there has been a violation is really proof that it didn't work. So we tend not to give companies any credit for a compliance program in that situation. Nice of them to have it, but we're not going to take it into account.